The Weather and Climate Communications Group here at Penn State consists of those of us here on Weather World, but also the state climatologist, Kyle Imhoff. He is joining us today for another round of conversation. Kyle, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I know springtime is here, but I want to step back and talk a little bit about winter and what happened this past winter regarding drought. It was a big topic during the season, and 4 months ago on the drought monitor, it showed that 87% of the state was experiencing some sort of drought. Currently, we're at 47% with abnormally dry conditions in the northwest and in the southeastern quadrant of Pennsylvania. There are some small areas of severe drought in Bradford, Franklin, and Fulton counties, as well as Berks County. So conditions are improving. But why is winter drought a big deal?
Yeah, so a lot of people think about drought and they think about the lack of precipitation, and oftentimes it's the warm season that everybody's focused on, the lack of the ability to grow crops and your grass browns up in your yard. But the wintertime drought matters because we care about water resource management. So we're looking at things like public water supply. So those are the things that we really are focused on with the cold season. And obviously this winter it's been drier than average when you look at things like the drought monitor product. So it's those kind of things that beyond what you typically think of with drought, we focus on that for the ability just to have drinking water and water into our homes.
Okay, so you mentioned the drought monitor.
Yeah.
That's one way to look at drought, but how is drought in general monitored by the state of Pennsylvania?
So there's a lot of different ways we do it. It breaks down into different sections or different sectors. So there's meteorological drought, which is the lack of precipitation, evapotranspiration rates that we focus on there. Agricultural drought is where we're focused on not only evaporation rates, but soil moisture levels. So we have these sensors that we focus on the top couple of inches to a couple of feet down into the soil to measure just how much water is available for plants and crop growth. So that is the agricultural drought sector of this. And then the final aspect is the hydrological drought piece. So that is where we're focused on public water supply. So that's groundwater levels, well levels, reservoir levels. So we're focused on all of those things to try to just determine whether there's enough water for society to be able to function properly. So there's those different aspects of it. So it's more than just lack of rainfall that everybody thinks about, the lack of precipitation. So it's all those things combined that we look at for a full perspective to try to assess, how dry is it? What are the kind of impacts that we're going to deal with this sort of lack of rainfall and lack of precipitation?
Going off of that, in your latest Pennsylvania Observer newsletter, which came out last week, you actually included a climate highlight that talked about the connection of early spring drought to corn harvest quality. Can you talk a little bit about how much winter and early spring weather play a role in upcoming summer crops?
Yeah, and Matthew Carlson, one of our students, did a great job with that highlight, so a shout out to him for that. So the early part of the growing season, the lack of rainfall then is what we focus on when we're worried about seed germination. So just when farmers are going out into the fields, they're planting everything. If they're not able to do that properly, then you affect things like crop emergence. So it's the ability of the plant to just physically grow for the early stages of its growth cycle. So that will lead to potential yield loss down the road. So that's why we focus on this time of year when it's dry. Those are the kind of impacts that we're worried about. And then conversely, if there's a lot of precipitation, then you get waterlogging problems. The soils get really wet and muddy, and so that can delay the onset of the ability to grow. So there's all sorts of problems that come about if you have too much rain or too little rain. So this year we're worried about too little rain. So those are the kind of things that farmers are worried about for the rest of the growing season.
That's interesting. So I mentioned the Pennsylvania Observer newsletter. Can you please describe it to those who don't subscribe to it? What is it and how can they receive it?
Yeah, so the way to get it is on our Climate Office website. There's a link there to subscribe on the homepage, or you can go into the features tab and you click on the Pennsylvania Observer newsletter link and it'll be there for you. Now, the newsletter itself, first and foremost, it's a way to capture what was the weather like across the state over the past month. So the very first section you'll see is a weather summary. It's a narrative style of just what were the major weather highlights of the past month. And then there's lots of other articles that we build upon. So not just me and my colleague Art Person also helps us to publish that newsletter, especially during the summer. But when the students are around, they are able to contribute to the newsletter. They create all kinds of articles, some really neat things in our climate highlights section where they pick a topic that interests them and then they just figure out if they want to do a little study or or if there is something that they want to learn more about. So we put that all together, and we had some really good contributions this past month with a lot of our students. So check out the March edition if you want to see some of those things. But yeah, they do a great job, and it's a really interesting, give you some insight into what the weather's like across the state, and just get some different perspectives that you may not normally get with weather information.
And a few of those students actually work behind the scenes here
Yes.
at Weather World, and Matthew Carlson is a host on Weather World,
Yes,
so that
they
was
do.
exciting to
Yeah.
see. So we'll just switch gears here a little bit.
Yep.
Now that the snow has melted, your team has been busy installing more of the PEMN sites. That stands for the Pennsylvania Environmental Monitoring Network. How is that going?
It's going well. So we just had another install last week. Now the weather's finally turning. So we installed at Everett Area High School. So my colleagues, Art Person and Scott Richardson, are fantastic field technicians that do this work. And so they were out there installing and putting up all the sensors and getting the tower up and running. So that's our 44th station. So we will have 50 by the time this network is complete, with funding through PEMA to do that work. So we're partnering with school districts like we did last week, and it's really exciting that we can partner with these schools to get K through 12 students involved and taking a look at the data and just getting some different curriculum that they wouldn't normally get for weather information, understand how do we assess and accurately understand what the real-time weather looks like, and how can we apply that to different lessons and different things.
That's great. So you're including it not only just for observations, but for education as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And something that I found really neat this past winter is that so many of those cameras actually captured the northern lights.
Yes, yeah, that's exciting. The night vision views actually from the cameras are really cool. So they're faced west to northwest, so we can see upcoming weather, so you can see how the weather evolves, the clouds come in, things. But those kind of things like the northern lights and constellations going across the sky, there's really cool things you can see on those cameras. So we're really excited about that part of it.
Well, and it's exciting. You have 6 more sites going up,
Yes.
so more places to view. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being here today. We'll have you here again at some point in the future, because there's always exciting stuff going on in the climate office. And we'll be back in a moment with more.